as a matter of fact.
Okay.
We're fine. I got a drink, I got a smoke. What do you want?
Congrats on at least getting the double bill of The Lost and The Girl Next Door on Canadian soil in Toronto. And what I was wondering is, what's it like for you to be, traveling all over the world with The Girl Next Door and, having to watch the such a moving and, challenging film over and over again? I mean,
I don't. I don't. I come in at the beginning and I leave, and then I come back at the end. Even I can only watch the movie so many times.
Oh, good.
And, after a while it also becomes a sort of like some sort of strange masturbation. You just have to leave. You just have to go away and hang out with friends for an hour and a half and check your watch until it's time to come back and say hi to the watchers in the theater.
Okay, thanks for the visual. That's an interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Now I know when I spoke with some of the actors from The Lost, one of the things that they felt with their tour with that movie is that depending on where they went across the globe, you get a slightly different interpretation of what the film was about. Because I know folks in Italy, for example, viewed the film with more of a kind of at an emotional level, cared more about the characters than the actual violence and the injury that was carried out. And I was just wondering, with both The Lost and now with The Girl Next Door, if you found that the crowd response to be any different as you do tour from place to place and culture to culture.
I'm finding it more similar than different. I think you're right about Italy. There were more people really visibly upset in Italy than there were here in the States. But Italians are very emotional. They're very big happy and very big sad.
Yeah, they kiss a lot.
But I think that I think it's been almost pretty close to almost on a certain kind of line that people either walk out angry at it or moved by it or puzzled as to why the hell they got in there in the first place.
Okay.
I'm not finding a lot of diversity there. I'm finding sort of a pretty much across the board response. People either love it or hate it. It's a pretty polarizing film.
Okay. Yeah, definitely doesn't lead much to guesswork. I think it's pretty strong either way that you look at it.
Yeah.
One thing I know too, if I was going to say too, Dallas, is that if The Lost, if that's a movie that ended up putting you on the map as an author whose books make for great films, and I'd imagine that The Girl Next Door has probably pretty much cemented that idea. What I wanted to ask you about that is, like, do you look at your recent success that you've had with the film adaptations as kind of a defining point for your the overall success of your career, or do you think that that success maybe means something else that one wouldn't guess so easily?
I'm going to have to digest that for a second. My feeling is that the films are almost peripheral. Yeah, I'm pulling in more cash this year and last year than I did before, and I'm getting certainly more exposure than I did before. But it's really about the work to me, and it's about the books and the prose to me. It's the acceptance of the books, and the books, don't forget, got pretty well esteemed and accepted before any movies were made of any adaptations were made of the books or the stories, and for me it's still that when you're doing a film, that's a collaborative effort, so I can't take real credit for that. I can only take credit for the base on that, and I'm certainly willing to field questions and to promote the movies because I've liked them, and because they've been responsible, good adaptations, I've always thought. I really, for me, it's like the book is on the shelf, and that's what I really want to point you to. And for me, the real pleasure, apart from the fact that it's wonderful to have these people interested in my books, is to point them back to the books, is to point them back to the actual writing.
Okay. Besides diversifying the paychecks, if what other benefits might you be uncovering and sort of discovering as you are developing as a film guy, both maybe personal as well as professional?
Well, I'm discovering that a lot of people are really angry at me.
Right.
which is kind of interesting and fun. I mean, I didn't get into this particular area area of writing to play it safe. And clearly, the fact that the films are bringing my stuff to a wider audience, they're not looking at it as safe. And I like the fact a lot that I seem to be generating a lot of controversy. If that wasn't the case, I don't think I would have been doing my job in the first place by writing this stuff.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I think there's that. I think the films are also maybe helping me to get. I've been getting emails from as far afield as Denmark and Hungary.
Oh,
you know, Hungary is publishing The Girl Next Door. I never thought that would happen. You know, and that's because it's being noticed on a wider field.
Okay. Well, it's definitely an international social issue that it deals with. That's for sure. Now, do you find that does the film stuff do you find that it helps to take some stress off of you as far as kind of toiling over the next decision to make that next novel sell even better than the books that came before that, or do you find that it gives you a bit of room to sort of breathe as far as not having to push yourself so hard to get that next novel out?
I think that's true. I think it's the latter.
Okay.
I feel like there's a time to be sitting down at the computer and writing stuff. There's a time to be striking this particular fire, and this particular fire is getting my name out there, and it's getting people to know me, in a more worldwide way. And so I feel perfectly okay with basically taking a year off and doing nothing but very little, but promoting these projects that other people have made of my stuff. I have managed to get off a few things. I've got a new book coming out from Bloodletting Press, which is a book of memoir. And I never thought way back when that I would ever be called upon to have a contract for a book of memoir. That's lovely, and I can segue these smaller pieces into. I can fit those smaller pieces into the larger profile of actually promoting this stuff this particular year. I'd like to try by the middle of this year, by the middle of '08, to get a little bit out of the fray and more back into the actual writing, because that's what I'm here to do.
Okay. No, I think speaking of the writing itself, I think a lot of people would probably agree that having even just one great mentor, in your corner as you're going along with the writing, especially when you're first starting out, and even through some of the tougher periods, that something like having a mentor can go a long way when you are first struggling to learn how to do it so well. If I can ask, who are some of your most trusted mentors as a writer, and have they been altered much at all now that you are also more into the movie end of things?
Well, my first mentor was Robert Bloch.
Mm-hmm.
And without him, I wouldn't be doing this. And before him, there was my English teacher who sent me to Robert Bloch, who basically threw me that assignment saying, write to your favorite writer and see if he writes back. And of course, Bob did. And then there's been Stephen King. Mm-hmm. And Stephen has been amazing. Pretty much every time he gets a chance, he throws a word in for me somewhere. I certainly don't think that I would have been noticed nearly as quickly without Stephen, because Stephen has this amazing, huge bully pulpit that even Bob didn't have, because Bob was basically only known by the fans of the genre. If you say Robert Bloch to people who don't know horror, you have to say, okay, he wrote Psycho. But if you say Stephen King, everybody goes, oh, hi. Yeah, I know that name. So Stephen has been amazing over the course of time, and I think he's been instrumental in getting me into a lot of foreign contracts, and and just getting me sort of noticed in general. Mm-hmm. Did that answer that?
Yeah, I think pretty much. So you found though that now that you are more kind of into the movie end of the things a little bit, then that your mentors haven't really changed all that much. Do you find that you're still the writer?
Not at all. I wouldn't call any of these guys mentors. What I've been lucky enough is to have film people who really care about the material, who I suppose in a way are mentors, because you've got Chris Sivertson sending me 3 versions of the first film script, and
Wow.
I've had input on all three of the films that I suppose I wouldn't have had. I don't suppose many people have that. So in a way, they're mentors because they're shepherding the films into the right direction. They're shepherding the films into the kind of films that I can be proud of.
Okay.
And I think that's been true of all three of them. I haven't seen the finished product of Red yet, but I have really good feelings about that as well because they also seem to be in my corner, if you will,
Okay.
in terms of like trying to get the material down responsibly and well.
Okay. Now, besides Red, which definitely is is an adaptation that I personally can't wait to see, as I mentioned to you before, it's listed, I know, right now on the IMDb website as being in post-production. But besides that one, what other book to film adaptations are you able to divulge details to us about?
Well,
if there's much that you can.
Luckily, he has an option on my screenplay for The Passenger.
Okay.
And hopefully he'll do that because I'd love to see him, finish that project. I think he'd be great for it. We've already talked about structure and design, and I'm behind that. My friend, I'm just blanking on his name. Why am I doing this? Because I've been probably hitting too many scratches. Alan DiFiore has an option on Joyride, and
Okay.
I've seen his first draft script, and that's quite good. Again, it's real faithful to the book. Alan, I've known Alan since, oh good God, since British Columbia, since Muscogee Island. We were hippies together in Muscogee Island, and at that time he wasn't even much writing except for a short story here and there. So he's become a very major television writer in Canada, and he did a really neat script on this, and he was shopping it around to some interest until the damn writer's strike hit. So I don't know what's going to come with that.
Another reason to hate what's going on with that.
Another reason to hate that, yeah. Also, Phil Nutman, who did co-wrote the Girl Next Door, has an option on Crossings, my horror western. And again, when the writer's strike hit, he was about halfway through a script for that. So we'll see how that goes.
Okay.
So there's stuff out there.
Okay, it sounds like it's just kind of being snagged up on the red tape of politics here for the time being.
Yeah, yep.
So, now, is there anything from your body of literary work that that you think that you would most enjoy seeing on the big screen that maybe hasn't already been optioned or made into film yet?
Sure, Only Child.
Okay.
I'm talking to some people about that, but it's never been optioned, and I think it'd be a really good film. And again, it's a true crime-based thing. It's I think pretty responsible. It's pretty strong. It was based loosely on a case that I saw on an HBO segment of American Crime, I believe it was called. I forget what it's called exactly. Lee Grant directed it, and it was about women in prison and why they got there. And this one was a particularly gruesome, silly story. She shouldn't have been in prison. She was trying to protect her kid. And so I wrote that, and I think that would be a neat film. Also, there's been a couple of nibbles at hide and seek lately, and hide and seek I think is sort of a pretty cinematic piece. It's pretty linear, and it's got some really great parts for actors in it. That would work. Okay.
Who would you maybe see kind of in your mind's eye as being leads for either of those films?
I don't think about things that way. I just don't. Because I have images of what their faces look like in my brain.
Yeah.
They're none of them actors. The only time I've ever had the experience of having an actor in my brain when I was actually writing a book or writing a script was Clint Eastwood for Red.
Okay.
I said to myself, what if they shot Clint Eastwood's dog? That's the only time that's ever come up. So no, I don't think that way exactly.
Well, okay, that is a lot of fun though to think of Eastwood as as being that good.
What if they shot Dirty Harry's dog?
Look out! They probably wouldn't have made it past the third chapter.
That's true too. But Clint had that gravitas, that he's got that chiseled, wonderful face, And you can always see him in almost all of his roles, in one way or another, just insisting on justice. And that's what the old man does in Red. He insists on justice. And by the way, I think Brian Cox nailed that part. Clint Eastwood, he's not Clint Eastwood, but he's certainly Brian Cox, and he brought a whole lot of dignity and strength to that.
Well, if he's nobody's Clint Eastwood but Clint Eastwood, but
right.
As if I didn't want to see.
Brian really nailed it.
Okay. Well, I definitely can't wait to check that one out at a later date. Mm-hmm. Now, if I did ask you as well, what's, if you can name kind of your biggest personal achievement, as well as perhaps on the flip side of that, your greatest disappointment since selling your first film option, what do you think you'd come back with as far as worst and best?
Wow. You don't fuck around, do you, Rich? Let's see.
You can feel free to tell me to go to hell if you don't want to answer any of these questions,
okay.
but...
Probably my... Oh, man. I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for this or not.
We'll find out later.
I think the silliest thing I've ever done as a writer is to sign off... Okay. I better not say that. That will probably just put me in deep shit at some point.
Well, I had a feeling you kind of mentioned that, but I can...
Between you and I think that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, this guy hasn't got a clue. Best. My favorite moments have been a couple. And they've all been between me and me. And it's all been finishing something. So finishing something that I felt was really right on there. Okay. I remember finishing Red and knowing that I had nailed that as best I could ever possibly have nailed it. And often the endings of books, Cover, I felt like I really nailed the end of Cover. The beginning and the end and all of the middle of The Girl Next Door, I felt like I was almost taking dictation doing The Girl Next Door. And Red was a little like that too. Those are really magical moments, and you have them in short stories, and you have them in books, and sometimes you just don't. Sometimes you're just writing a thing, and it's good, and it's fun, and you're having a good time. But every now and then you feel the real magic is that you've actually given this your utterly best shot, and you can look back at it when you finish it and say, yeah, I'll stand behind that 100%.
Okay.
That's the best.
Okay, very cool. Now I know, speaking about the actual, craft.
Worst moment?
Yeah.
You cover the original Girl Next Door. The cheerleader.
Okay.
When I got that in the mail, I just went, oh, fuck.
Yeah, if that didn't give the wrong impression, and there's a few people that find, the cover of the DVD to be not up to their standards. I mean, the original cover of the cheerleader was...
Yeah, they should check that out if they think that,
At least they took the pom-poms away from her.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Actually, I like the DVD cover. I think it's nice.
Yeah.
It's real nice.
I was a little bit worried when I saw the original promo one for it, the one that I originally got from the Modern Cine Group, that says on the bottom, based on a true story. I see that they've switched that to the one that's on the movie shelves to Inspired By, and I thought that was good.
I went to the wall on that one.
Oh, that's good.
You cannot call this based on.
Good.
It's got to be Inspired By.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because I know actually even recently, while on that message board, that's one of the things that I replied to rather in your guest book, was somebody made that fact or that assumption that it was something that was strictly inspired by, etc.
And I thank you for that. That's quite right. Yeah.
So that's good. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that was true too, because I hadn't seen that anywhere else except for the original promo poster that I actually had in front of me.
They want it all over the place. Yeah. That's La La Land for you every now and then. They just, and I said, no, you can't. You simply can't do that because it's not based on. It's based on a novel which is inspired by.
Yeah.
So it's like 2 generations removed already. So you can't put based on your DVD cover.
Yeah. Well, I think that would be court material if they did that because that's simply not true.
Yeah.
Being known as the guy who doesn't exactly write happy stories by any stretch of the imagination, when the work's done and demons are kind of subdued for another day, What do you find, like, what's left that actually scares you more than anything else is, as you walk down your city streets as, just a regular guy who happens to write dark tales for a living?
I'm not scared by much, luckily. I mean, I live in a fairly safe area in Manhattan. So nothing on a daily basis tends to scare me much.
Okay.
I'm disturbed, sure. I mean, I'm disturbed every time I turn on the news or I look at the AOL boards and I see, this or that person doing this or that to somebody else, some kid getting tortured in the basement. That happens on a pretty damn daily basis, and it's disturbing in that I wrote that now. That's basically, that story's out of me.
Yeah.
And it's now sort of in the general public's purview. They can take from it what they want or not, but it's still going on and on and on. I've pretty much said what I have to say about it.
Yeah.
Still, it's going to be there. It's going to be there until the day I die, and I would prefer it weren't, but it is, and it's just a fact of life. People will be doing awful things to kids for the rest of my life, and way beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
If I can make a teeny dent in that, or make some sort of at least even just talk about it, seems like a good thing to do. I don't know.
Absolutely, and it sounds like you guys are achieving that, especially going from one of Phil's most recent blogs that he put out there actually on his MySpace, I think it was.
Yeah.
I think that's where I saw it. It was pretty awesome. Some of the people, I guess they came up to both you and him at one of the festivals and kind of made a bit of a confession and thanked you guys for making a huge difference. So it sounds like it's.
Told me that was pretty neat. Every now and then I'll get little mini confessions like that. Sometimes it's much smaller scale. I have a couple of guys come up to me at conventions and say, "Look, I didn't read until I read Off Season.
Yeah.
I really didn't. Somebody said, you got to read this book. And I didn't read anything unless it was, something I had to read for high school. And I read Off Season, now I'm a reader. Well, you can't get better than that with a writer.
Yeah.
That's what a writer wants to do, is to turn you onto more and more books, his own plus everybody else's. Because we're all in this because we started to love reading in the first place.
Yeah.
And it's not a lost art, but it's an art that needs protecting.
Yeah, absolutely. And it kind of, you hear confessions like that, and it kind of waters down the people that you end up pissing off along the way, huh?
I don't give a shit if I piss people off. I don't care.
Yeah.
I hope if I piss them off, I piss them off for the right reasons and they're the right people to be pissed off. I don't want to hurt anybody who's been mistreated as a child by having them read my book or see a film based on my book.
Yeah.
I don't want them to feel that kind of pain, but they can, after all, choose to not buy the book, or choose to close it, or choose to not watch the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll understand that completely. If I can get one or two people here and there along the way who are actually helped by it, that's amazing. That's a mitzvah.
Okay. Are you still there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry, it just went really quiet there for a second.
I just said mitzvah.
Okay.
Most people don't say mitzvahs.
Okay. I thought maybe I wasn't sure if that was hyphenated or not, and I was waiting for the rest.
Oh, you know what mitzvah is?
No.
It's Jewish for blessing.
Oh, okay.
M-I-T-Z-V-H-A. Mitzvah.
Oh, okay.
A-H.
As in bar mitzvah.
It's as in bar mitzvah, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, I just needed an association to it. So, okay, now here's a question for you. If I was just kind of walking around the streets of New York and bumped into you and we had a drink, what have you, and we ended up going back to your place after, getting a tour of your place, what do you think that we'd be most surprised to come across or to see along the way of your tour?
In my apartment?
Yes.
You'd probably be surprised to see a lot of early American furniture. A lot of stuff that really doesn't look very scary at all. That's kind of sweet. I've got an old pie chest and an old cupboard. Paul and I both tend to like early American stuff. So interspersed between the horror awards and the ugly stuff and the strange sort of like really twisted Santa Claus that I've got hanging around on my wall.
Okay.
And Japanese prints. You'd find a checkerboard sitting on the wall. You'd find, you'd find lots of bloody books. You'd find a doll's house. Because Paula's been working on this enormous doll's house all of her natural life since I've met her.
Oh, wow.
Which is a replica of the Aldrich house in Providence, Rhode Island, the Aldrich mansion. And she's been doing that for a long, long time. What else did you find to be surprising? You'd find that the cat, the house is basically organized around 4 cats. Agencies. Let's see, what else? Oh, you'd find lots of cooking stuff, because I cook.
Okay.
Yeah. You'd find a whole kitchen full of cooking stuff.
What's the meal that you always go back to cooking for yourself when the most often that you find?
My soul food is lentil soup, German-style lentil soup. And whenever I feel like depressed, I make the lentil soup because it goes back to my great-great-grandmother's lentil soup in Germany. Okay.
So kind of a quick time warp travel meal.
That's good. That's a good question. Nobody's ever asked me that, dude.
Okay. Well, thanks so much, Dallas, for basically playing the 12 or the 13 terrible questions for Jack Ketchum here, which I think ended up being a few more on top of that. I don't know, was there anything extra that you wanted to kind of plug as far as, stuff that we can maybe expect from you craft-wise or expect from you physically and cons?
We talked about the memoir book, which is good.
Yeah.
There's also, good God, I mean, someday before I die, the book on the Wheel of Sex is going to come out, which you've probably been promoting since, 2005.
Yeah.
Joyride is coming out soon from CD. I have to deal with Gauntlet to do the last basic major book, which isn't in print yet, which is The Only Child, and that's coming out soon. I've got art on that.
Okay.
So by the end of this year, pretty much all my major stuff is going to be back in print somewhere, which is pretty cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is really cool. And I mean, like you said, I guess it goes hand in hand with the prolific status that the movie stuff has put you up to. It definitely comes back and helps out the books, it sounds like.
Oh, absolutely. And when you consider that back in, 10 years ago, 15 years ago,
yeah.
I was lucky to get a book on the shelf for 6 months. This is pretty cool. So.
Yeah. And that's actually, because I know, it was a pretty awesome thing, too, when, they just started in, I think it was Germany, wasn't it, where they basically did the reissue a couple of years ago of The Girl Next Door? Mm-hmm. I remember it was somewhere out there in Europe, and...
Germany has The Girl Next Door. They also have off-seasons out, too.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay. I don't think I've seen the off-season cover yet.
It's very close to the original cover that never got used. It's a hand, sort of severed arm.
Oh, okay.
It looks very, very much like the original cover that Valentine refused to use because it got scared. Yeah, it's neat.
Okay.
Neat cover. Did you get what you wanted, Richard?
Absolutely, and I find that with our interviews, I usually end up getting a little bit more than what I bargained for, so thanks for that.
Well, that's good. That's excellent. All right.